And okay. So with the fish oil, the other thing is I don't want to have to overtake any of my supplements. I'm always looking for how can I get the best dosing and the cleanest product and get the most for the investment that I make in taking a fish oil. I start with fish oils because they're so important. It's just one of the first things I think of. We do get omegas in our leafy greens. We get omegas in our grass-fed meats. We get omegas in our fish. There's like lots of places we get those good anti-inflammatory fats from. We usually have a good mix of 6s and 9s. Omega 6s and 9s, we don't have to work as hard at, but the omega 3s, most people have to work hard at. And this is like, if you get behind on that, that's what causes osteoarthritis over the years. Most osteoarthritis that's progressive is because of an omega-3 deficiency. And you can really stop progression and even reverse some of that just by getting really good fish oil that your body does well with online. So I like the Vital Nutrients Ultra Pure 700 because I can take 2 capsules and it's like 2,400 milligrams, really good ratios of EPA, DHA, and it's just a super clean product. I hate taking supplements, by the way. Like, I don't like swallowing the capsules and doing a bunch of things. It's just not, it's something that's really hard for me. So when I decide to take a supplement, is because it's really important to me, and I can be very consistent when it's important to me and it aligns with my values for how I want to take care of my body. So that's one that I know because I want healthy joints 20 years from now. I do that one every day. And that's a really important one to me, that my clients have some way of getting the good omegas in high amounts. The other omega that I'll do is a borage oil. Sometimes people know this more as like a primrose oil. It's in that same omega-3 pathway. It's just a little bit more downstream and very, very anti-inflammatory. So I like that. It's great for hormone health. It's great for pain. It's great for skin. So the borage is something I'll especially my women, I probably need to focus on more on that with my men, but with my my female clients, I definitely use a lot of borage oil. Another oil that I tend not to lean on super heavily. I will pulse this one in my own world. But this one can be really nice. It can be nice for dryness. Vitamin E is critical. So that's just a nice one to know about. Sorry, this isn't coming through. There we go. There are some conditions that I treat where I focus very heavily on vitamin E as a daily. It's just another good fat. So any of those, if you choose to do them, like, they're just adding to your diet. It's just adding to your good nutrition. And good fats are so important because that's what we're building our cell membranes with. They're such good energy producers, and your body's not going to make as much. You think about cholesterol, for example. Like, people get really funny about that. Like, if you limit cholesterol in your diet and you take a statin, your body's just going to work harder to make cholesterol. It's really silly. I'll do a talk on that in a few weeks. Anyways, so fats are wonderful. I take fats, and I don't like so much. I'll cook with a little bit of fat, and I'm really careful about how I do that. So I have some really specific cooking tips on that. But when what I love to do is like steam my vegetables and then put the fat right on top. So everybody gets a tablespoon of fat with every meal, and we rotate what fats we're getting exposed to every day. So we're all getting really good fats. MCT butyrate. This is just another, I love this company. They do a few really good things. I do their MCT oil. This one has the butyrate as well. Butyrate is food for the enterocytes that line the gut. So your gut's like this big long tube, and the cells on the inside, that's their food. Butyrate is a short chain fatty acid, and it's literally food for the gut. So I use butyrate a lot in my like GI cases, and I actually test for butyrate. So I know if someone needs that, if they're making short chain fatty acids or not. And if butyrate is deficient, we can replace that in the diet. That's something that your microbiome is responsible for. So if your good bugs are making your short chain fatty acids and they're in good amounts, I don't have people supplement that, but that's one that if you need it is a great way to feed your gut with good fats. The other, let's see. Okay. And then just to show you, so this is one, I did this for a long time. I'm not on it right now, but this is one I don't mind as a daily. I'll use this like in dementia cases. You see fantastic results using MCTs. MCTs are medium chain triglycerides, and they're like fuel for the brain that especially with dementias and things, like you think about plaques in the brains as we age, The reason that we see cognitive decline with that isn't so much because the plaques are there, it's because it stops the brain from using glucose really well. And we use a lot of sugar in that part. So feeding that part is really important. And the MCTs are alternative fuel source for the brain. So in cases of cognitive decline or just thinking about health that way, that's a really nice one. People love it for energy. People, lots of people do MCTs, and I like that one. I don't mind that as a daily. Okay, so next topic, probiotics. Probiotics are another one of those things. If we just think about what's happened to the soils over the last 1 to 200 years, it's significant, the ways that we've changed the microbiome of the earth. And because of those changes, we don't get the exposures that we used to. Things are very sanitary in some ways compared to kind of a caveman living, and we need exposure to a good microbiome. We need really good biodiversity. There's a lot of up and coming research on things like fecal transplants for this reason, because the microbiome diversity is really connected to our health on so many levels. Just like I said, the microbiome makes your short chain fatty acids. That's what's responsible for like feeding your gut tube. It's pretty important stuff. And autoimmune diseases, all kinds of things. Even you can take like a breast tissue that's healthy and a breast tissue that has cancer, and you can look at the microbiome in those tissues, and they're quite different. And there's turn this off. There's things that we can we're learning about and studying about, and fecal transplants will be something that are used a lot more in the future of medicine. I'm sure there are some limited places that's used right now in this country, but it's something that like I get requests all the time. I don't have a way of helping people access that, but it's a hot topic. And I do microbiome analysis. I look at all the normal flora. I look at the commensal bacteria, anything pathologic, and we get a really good view of that, like normal, like what's your biodiversity look like? And then there's all kinds of ways that you can enhance that. So I do recommend probiotics as a daily. I think that's an important thing for everybody to be exposing themselves to. I am not picky about the probiotic. And I love when people do things like the, kind of the fermented foods, and there's all kinds of ways to do this. So it doesn't have to just be with a supplement, but you do need to kind of add those probiotics in different ways. And so I love a rotation of probiotics and different probiotic exposures just to get that diversity. But there are some cases, like if someone has Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, there are very well studied strains that are just really anti-inflammatory, work very well for those conditions. Same thing with like mast cell activation syndrome, which I treat a lot of mast cell disorders. And with the histamine release that comes with those disorders, there are certain strains that are going to be histamine stabilizing or that won't make that worse. And then there are certain probiotics that might actually enhance like you need to be careful with which ones you're doing, and you can really be strategic about it. So there's all kinds of ways of using probiotics. There's also, I didn't bring one out today to show, but the Saccharomyces boulardii is another one. It's a non-colonizing, it's not so much a probiotic, it's a yeast. It's a probiotic that people use to combat like antibiotic-induced diarrhea, because it just acts as a space holder. Because it's a yeast that doesn't colonize, it can just be a nice space holder. But it also helps with the histamine. It brings the enzyme up that degrades the histamine. So in a mast cell case, that can be a really important addition with your probiotic as well. This is one of my favorites. This is the children's version. We're out of my women's, and the Therabiotic Complete that I keep by the same company. I like the Therabiotic Complete because I get it in a powder, and I can bring someone up really high in the dosing for a little while and then bring it back down. And you can sprinkle it on food or put it in a shake or however you want to take it. It's really easy to take. It doesn't taste bad. It's just fine. So the chewables are great for kids. The powders are great for adults that need a varied dosing. And then there's a women's probiotic, detox probiotic. The Clear Labs is great. So I love their, that's one of the companies I use. I use several different companies, but they're one of the companies that I use as kind of my foundational probiotic. If they have a good one for you, I'll use those. I'll also use Genestra and Soroyal They have some great formulas as well. Visbiome is one that's just been really well studied. A lot is a very high dose. Certain inflammatory gut conditions just do really well on this one. This one used to be VSL. Something happened with the company. It's now Visbiome, but it's a great product. So I always have these in my fridge, and those are life-saving for people with certain GI conditions. It can really make all the difference in normalizing. So probiotics are a good one to consider daily no matter what, and to be really strategic about if you're not in good health. Other dailies and things that I find important and that I prescribe a lot. So multivitamin or B complex, right? So depending on what kind of the rest of the regimen looks like, and what I'm doing with someone, how focused I'm being, and what the overall picture is. This B complex is another favorite. I've used this in my comprehensive pain management forever. It's one I take myself. It's a phosphorylated. So phosphorylated and methylated B vitamins especially are just really important. You don't want like cheap chelates. You don't want like cyanocobalamin. You want methylcobalamin. Number one, like you just don't need cyanide. So we don't need a cyanocobalamin. The cobalamin is the B12. The CN is just what it's bound to. So you'll see all kinds of chelates, and I can do another talk on how to like label read supplements. But methylated or phosphorylated, acetylated vitamins are my favorites. Those are a bit more biochemically ready to use. So if you don't know how what your methylation status is, it's really a good idea to use a methylated or a phosphorylated or an acetylated vitamin. That's going to be better. And for pain management, I find I just don't want people to get hung up in not being able to heal. So I use really, I'm very specific about the forms of the vitamins that we use, and not B complex. So B's, yes, you're going to see some vitamins in your urine. That's riboflavin. That always happens when you take some B's. Doesn't mean you're like losing all your vitamins in your urine or something like that. Your B's turn over every 6 hours in the body. So every 6 hours, you can kind of afford a B complex. Some people are stimulated by B's. So I don't recommend them at night unless you know that you're not that person. But the B's you can do up to 3 times a day, and that can be really useful for someone who's working their biochemistry pretty hard. Okay. Other things that are worth mentioning. Vitamin D. This is another one. I really don't find people are getting their vitamin D from their sun exposure. Vitamin D is just super tricky that way. You would have to be kind of out in your underpants in a place that's close enough to the sun, showing your front for 20 minutes without any sunscreen, going to the back for 20 minutes without your sunscreen, early in the morning, like 7, 8, 9 o'clock. Getting later, it's going to be less useful. You can make 20,000 units a day that way, but most of us like really aren't doing that. Even if you garden a lot, even if you're outside a lot, most of us aren't making our 20,000 units a day using our skin through sun exposure. So if you wanted to trial that, I just recommend testing a lot more often until you kind of see how seasonally your D changes with and without supplementation. But I find most people need to supplement, and it can be really tricky. Like you might have to change by 1,000 or 2,000 IUs, or if you're doing a D3 without a K2, you might need to add in a K2 and do a combination supplement. Most vitamin Ds, like they're fat soluble. It's a fat soluble vitamin. You're going to absorb it better if you take it with some fat, absolutely. But most of them are like if it's a liquid, like I have one here I use Demulsion, it's in an oil immersion. So it's not a huge problem with absorption. My biggest thing is don't do an ergocalciferol. It's a D2. It's not an active vitamin D. It's not a safe form of vitamin D. I don't agree with using it. A lot of doctors will prescribe that when they see someone's deficient, and they'll do it in high amounts. I don't like that at all. I like a D3 or a D3K2. Just to show this one, this is the one I'm currently taking, Vitamin D Supreme. It's a 1 capsule, 5,000 IU, and it is a vitamin D3 with a vitamin K, which is great, K1 and K2, which is nice. Another daily that This one is just like, especially for the high performers, like people that are really using their body. I know this shows up kind of in reverse. It's Neo 40 Professional. It's like a daily heart and circulation formula, but why? It makes NO. So it's really gonna kind of push oxygenation and work on that kind of like VO2 max that I talked about in the healing longevity ozone and EWOT talk. So at like NO2, or I'm sorry, nitric oxide products are really great. It's a nice way to work on, like, certainly the kind of to support circulation and heart health. But like I think about it in our athletes, most athletes are working on that NO, and it's a great product. So I do it twice a day for the first month, and then once a day ongoing. And you can test. I have strips in the back so you can see if you're deficient. But that's another one of those. It just goes down over time. And yeah, there's lots of ways to work on that. Supplementation is one of them. So it's a great daily to be on. I consider it really good preventative and in my longevity category. Um, I also consider the turkey tail mushrooms in that category. I have a few versions. I have several mushrooms in the office. Mushrooms are really great if you tolerate them. They can be very adaptogenic. They can just be so good for longevity. I love those as another consideration for daily. I'm currently doing like mushroom coffee is really where I've shifted my caffeine to, is green tea and then mushroom coffees. In love with a company called Rise. If anyone wants an affiliate, like a 15% off or something. I think we have an affiliate link that gives you a break on your first order or something like that. But really cool company. I love them. And a lot of my patients use them as well. It's got like MCT, is a very small amount of like a coffee and the mushrooms. And it's like 2 grams of mushrooms per cup, which is fantastic. Okay. The other longevity daily, this is so an enhanced Chyavanprash. So Chyavanprash is like a blend of herbs, and it's just really great for circulation. It's really great for cognition, so great for memory. I did this a lot, like leading up to my boards. We had a kind of a funny instructor that taught us how to make this stuff, and we all made some this summer of my first set of board exams. So before science boards, he was funny. He just kind of guaranteed if we took so much of it leading up to the board exams, our points would go up by whatever the percentage was. And I did find it to be very supportive. So it's something that I continue, and my husband continues, and I do. I try and turn my patients onto as just an option for another way of like working, with the body and working with longevity, and just adding some really good things to the nutrition. Just like the soils have been depleted of like good microbiome diversity, it's like we don't get the nutrients that we used to from our food. We just, the way that we farm, and the like potassium is way down. There's lots of things that are like we don't get the same nutrition from our food that we did, before industrialization and the things that have happened in the last 200 years. So that's just something we all have to kind of live with. I don't mind supplementing the diet. I think it's a good thing for the body to have enough of what it needs to really optimize the biochemistry. So that's my background. I'm chemistry, biochemistry was my bachelor's before I got the doctorate in naturopathic medicine and acupuncture. And I still lean very heavily on that background, and the biochemistry is so important. And if you just open up a biochemistry book, it always is hysterical to me that like even doctors at Dana-Farber will say, oh gosh, what you eat doesn't matter. Just don't have McDonald's every day. You'll be fine. And I completely disagree. I think there is a way that you can use food as medicine. And I think of supplements as just additions to my food. So I'm very strategic about them. Yes. And I don't think we need to be on bucketfuls of supplements. I love to have people bring in their buckets and their lists and kind of say, okay, like, there, yes, you can do this, but for me, I like to get a lot in liquids, a lot in powders. I'll do things in shakes. I really work on maximizing the nutrition by doing really very nutrient dense whole food diet. Very paleo Mediterranean is kind of what works best for me. So I stay in kind of in that wheelhouse for food. Colostrum is another one that like I think is really important daily. Colostrums are like it's just great for the immune system. And it's another one of those things the body needs that we just don't get enough of. I love the Designs for Health paleo greens. So I just add this to my shakes. So I do really good, like chard or bok choy are my favorite greens to go in like a NutriBullet shake. And I like to do blueberries is a great antioxidant for me. I have like mono in my history, and that's just a nice way to, there's just certain very specific things I do with my diet to help manage that viral load. And the greens really help. And it's a yummy one. It's really good. Nutrient density for what you get. And then protein, I'm big on protein. So I love like a bone broth protein. I use the Pure Paleo. There's like a chocolate and unflavored. My kids have never had like your commercial hot chocolates, or the like packaged hot chocolate that's mostly sugar. We use the paleo. We use the chocolate bone broth, and I add MCTs and I add nut milk, and I add some hot water to make it a nice temperature. And I use a hand whisk and make a hot chocolate that way. And it's delicious. You can add a little bit of honey or something for a sweetener if you need. And that works really well. So all just additions to the diet. I did go through the B complex. I'm realizing I didn't grab my polyphenol nutrients. So Pure Encapsulations does several nutrients that I like for multivitamin consideration. And if you do something like these, like a really good basic nutrient or a basic detox, kind of multivitamin, multi-nutrient for 8 weeks, you're going to be in a very different condition. So these are not things we're getting in sufficient amounts in our diets. And even if you're getting RDA or whatever is in the Centrums or the things they sell at, kind of your typical vitamin shops, you're getting just enough so you're not going to be sick. It's not optimization. So I'm all about optimization. So polyphenols are one of my favorites. I love their Nutrient 950. That's a pretty intense one. I love their athletic nutrients, and they have several other blends that I'll use, but those are kind of my biggest go-tos. N-acetylcysteine is one. Like when I lived in Arizona and I was breathing the particulate matter that floats around out there, there's just a lot of, like, everyone needs to work on their liver when they're, with air quality and toxicities. So, we get it from so many different directions. People have been talking about N-acetylcysteine for other reasons for the last couple of years, but it's, it's just a nice support. It's nice for the liver, and the liver is responsible for phase 1 and phase 2 of that detoxification process, where we prepare things for excretion in the urine. So the kidneys do the last phase of that. But the N-acetylcysteine is really a great antioxidant. Your body will use it to make glutathione. We do that in all of our cells. It's a super antioxidant. You can also take glutathione. I keep a liposomal in my fridge. NAC and glutathione in the biochemistry are fairly interchangeable. The body's going to take the glutathione, break it down into an N-acetylcysteine, and then rebuild the glutathione. So it's just kind of funny how the biochemistry works. But either way, I do glutathione in my IVs. I have people take it regularly. A lot of people like taking it. I use it a lot with my like mycotoxin infections, things where people have been exposed to molds. I use it for provoking for certain tests. I use it in like Parkinson's and autism cases, where there's a lot of oxidative stress. Glutathione is going to be useful. And N-acetylcysteine is just another way of doing that. You can take 1,500 milligrams a day, and that can work really well. And most people tolerate that very well. It's also a sulfur donor, which, like, if you do comprehensive hormone eval with me, I will see how well you're sulfonating. That's a part of it. Like we get to look at what the biochemistry with the way that I look at hormones. So we'll see if DHEAS, which is your longevity hormone, it's like the storage form of DHEA, if that's really low, I have to figure out, like, is that because we're not making, we're not, like, the hormones are having, there's dysregulation in the production of the hormone, or is it that we're not sulfonating, so we can't store this hormone very well? So if we're not sulfonating, sometimes we just need to add a little bit of sulfur donor, like NAC, MSM. There's, if it's methylation that's low, we can do that with nutrients like SAMe is great. So lots of considerations there once we know what the biochemistry looks like that also affect daily supplementation. But this is one, depending on the situation, it can be a very nice daily. Okay, I have other things to talk about, but this is running a little long, so I'm going to break it up and I will do adrenal supports, immune supports, and anything else that I missed today in a future talk. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate all the engagement that I've been getting. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I would be happy to either connect on a messenger or just go on the website and schedule a discovery call if you want to have like a one-on-one and talk about any of this. But there's a lot of controversy in like, who should be taking what and how much. And people have a lot of there can be a stigma around vitamins and taking vitamins and selling vitamins and all of this. So I do want to break that down over a couple of talks and just help people make decisions for themselves around what might be useful and how to do that safely. So I hope this was a helpful introduction. Again, I'm Dr. Jen Kilgore. Thanks so much for being with me today. I will be posting this in several places for anyone that's watching later. Feel free to comment with any questions. I do take time to go back and answer thoughtfully. Thanks so much.